Our theme for this month, the focus for this month in connection to our annual theme, is all about truth, understanding and appreciating and getting a firm grasp on truth. Part of that was specifically designed because we're about a month out from school starting. And if there's something that our young people really need to get a grasp on, if there's something that they really are challenged with, especially our college students as they go off into the major universities, it's really this. It's the understanding and appreciating and knowing where to find truth in the mass of information that they are surrounded with today. Well, a couple years ago, and by a couple, I think it was at least 30, if I remember the site correctly. I couldn't find my source. It was at least 30 years ago. There's a man who read a stop sign, and he was given a ticket because he just clearly ran it. There was no question about it. Didn't even stop, just ran right through it. Well, so he had the ticket, and he took it, but rather than paying the fine, he decided to take his ticket and his case to court. And the contention was this. It wasn't that he broke the law. It wasn't that he didn't stop. The issue he cited was this. What really does the word stop mean? You say I didn't break the law, but you tell me, what does that word stop really mean? Now I hear you're already scoffing in the pews. I heard it. You know why that's ridiculous? You know why when we hear that kind of situation, and that's a real story, it's not a preacher story, that really happened. You know why we kind of laugh at that? Because there's some things in life, we might call them universal truths or universal standards. Everyone agrees, we all know it's true. We all see it the same. It's the universal standards that we use to get by in life. So for instance, if I leave from here after services and I go to Lowe's and I want to buy a board, a 4-foot long board. Well, how do I know if I find a board, it's 4 foot long? I could try and guess. I could try and look at it with my eyes, or I could get out a tape measure, right? I get that tape measure, and if the tape measure, if it's right and accurate, and if it says 4 feet, then it's a 4 foot long board, and everyone would agree that's the same. Well, then I go over to the paint department, and I want to get some paint because I want to paint this board red. Well, out of all the colors, and you've seen them before, all the colors on the wall, how do I know which one is which? If I go to the person and said, sir, I want red paint, what's he going to give me? Well, he's not going to give me blue. He's not going to give me green. He's not going to give me yellow. He's going to give me something like this. There may be variations and different shades, but to him and to me and to you and to everyone, red is always red. And so I get my paint and I got my board and I go to the cashier and she says, sir, it's going to cost you $10. Good sale at Lowe's today. So I'm going to pay $10. So I got my $20 bill and I give her the $20 bill. And she goes, oh, that's not enough. I said, excuse me? She said, well, I know to you that piece of paper is worth $20, but to me that piece of paper is only worth about $5. What am I going to say? Where's your manager? I don't think so. Everyone understands that means $20 bills. That's the point. There are some things in life, universal truths that everyone agrees on. Everyone. It's by those standards we know that up is up and down is down, is right, and left is left, that a foot is a foot and a mile is a mile, that red is red and blue is blue, that red means stop and green means go, and on and on and on we can go, right? Universal truths. Yes, those are under attack. Yes, there are some who would like to try and confuse simple logic by saying that 2 + 2 does not for some reason equal 4, or that a man is not a man and a woman is not a woman. But if we all try and get down to the reasoning, down between everyday average people, we all understand that there are some universal truths by which we live and operate. Here's our question today. When it comes to truth, even more specifically, when it comes to spiritual truth, what's the standard? What is the standard we use to determine spiritual truth? That's the question we're going to chase today. See, here's the thing. Paul said in the book of 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 21, test everything and to hold fast what is good. And John said in 1 John 4 and verse 1, he said, beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. And I like the paraphrase of Proverbs 14 and verse 15. It says, the gullible believe everything they're told, but the prudent sift and weigh every word. I love that language. You catch the idea of those old gold searchers. And they get down and they get their little pans into the riverbed and they sift and they look through all the mud and the rocks because they're looking carefully to find the truth. Well, here's the thing. If John and if Paul and the Proverbs, if they're telling us to test or to examine or to weigh what we hear, what the teachings that we are receiving are, does that not imply that we're testing them or examining them according to some kind of a standard? That we're testing them or measuring them according to some kind of standard? That's our question today. What standard do we use to determine what is true, what is right? So that's why we're in the book of Acts chapter 8. Because in Acts 8, I want to start here. We're going to look at 5 standards we can't use. 5 standards we should not use to determine truth, and yet there are 5 standards that a lot of people use today. 5 false standards of authority. Acts 8, we find the evangelist Philip. He is preaching in Samaria. And while there, they find this man, Simon the sorcerer, who is impressing the crowds. Let's read it together. This is Acts chapter 8, beginning in verse 9. It says, there was a man named Simon who formerly was practicing magic in the city and astonishing the people of Samaria, claiming to be someone great. And they all, from smallest to great, were giving attention to him, saying, this man is what is called the great power of God. And they were giving him attention because he had for a long time astonished them with his magic arts. All right, false standards of authority. Things we cannot use, cannot lean on to determine what is real, genuine, authentic, non-flawed truth. Here we go. Here's number 1. Feelings and emotions. He astonished the people. And yet for a lot of people, what they use to make decisions, what they use to determine right and wrong is the gut, what I feel. Kind of say, I'm going to go with my gut. It feels right to me. It seems right to me. That kind of montage of let your conscience be your guide, that only really works when your conscience is trained by the Word of God. But many of us trying to train our conscience by what I feel. It seems right to me. It feels right to me. The problem with emotions, the problems with feelings is that it's so subjective to me and the situation that I am in. For instance, has this ever happened to you when you call someone and they don't pick up the phone? And so you text them, call me, nothing. So you call them again, nothing. And you call them again. And at first you're annoyed, like why in the world do you have a cell phone if you're not going to pick it up? This is especially true if you're an adult kid and you have parents in their 60s and 70s and you think, why are you not picking this up? But you call them again and you call them and you call them. At first you're annoyed, but then you call them more and you start to get worried. Are they in a wreck? Did something happen? Are they sick? Are they in a hospital? Are they in prison? All day long, your mind is racing. Are they mad at me? Did I say something? And then what happens? Well, you get a call at the end of the day saying, oh, sorry, honey, my phone died and I forgot to plug it in. Well, feelings are not always a right indication of what's going on. I mean, think about Paul. Paul thought within himself that he was doing the right thing when he was persecuting God's people. Was he doing the right thing? No. He felt like he was. He thought that he was, but he was wrong. Isn't that what the proverb says? There's a way that might seem right, feel right to me, but it doesn't make it the right way, the right path. And so just because my gut says that this is right, just because I may feel like this is true, does not make it true. Here's number 2, position. Simon was claiming to be someone great, and without a doubt, if someone is well known, if someone who is popular, someone in a position of authority or teaching, they get a special sense of difference and attention because they are someone worth paying attention to. Preachers, teachers, writers, authors. If the blog has a lot of followers, if the video has a lot of views, surely what this person is saying must be true, but that's not always the case. There's a lot of people, a lot of preachers, a lot of teachers who claim that their message comes directly from God. They have that special privilege of this pipeline from heaven. But the reality is just because someone says it's true or claims it to be true or claims that it comes from God doesn't make it so. In fact, Paul would say, 2 Corinthians 11, verses 12 and 13, he says, what I'm doing, I will continue to do, that I may cut off opportunity from those who desire an opportunity to be regarded just as we are and the matter about which they are boasting. For such men are false apostles, deceitful workers, disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. In other words, just because someone claims to be an apostle, just because someone claims to be inspired, just because someone says it comes from God or says it's true, doesn't make it true, doesn't make it so. Now we get this in everyday matters. Have you noticed how often celebrities try and put themselves in positions of authority, that they know everything about politics, that they know everything about everyday living? And there's a lot of people who listen to them because they're well known. Just because they're famous, just because they've written a lot of books, just because they have a well-known blog, just because they have a famous video or a lot of followers on social media, just because they're someone important, doesn't mean that the things that they're saying are right or wrong. It's not a standard of truth. Here's number 3, popularity. Verse 10, that they were all giving him their attention. And here's how that goes. Ready? Surely, this many people can't be wrong. Surely not. If this many people think it's right, if this many people believe it, surely that many people can't be wrong, correct? Surely the majority vote would not get it all wrong, right? History doesn't tell that to be true, right? I mean, all we have to say is Noah, right? Yet the whole world was wrong except for one man and his family. How many centuries did man believe that the world was flat? Majority vote. They were wrong. What did Jesus say on the matter? Majority's going to get it right? Well, no, he says there's a path that some are going to take. In fact, there's a path that a lot of people are going to take because it's wide and open and you can do what you want to do and believe what you want to believe. But the end of that path is doom, destruction. But those who follow the right path, the narrow path, the path of truth, it's not going to be a lot of people compared to the majority. And so just because a lot of people believe something, just because there's a lot of people who believe a certain belief or follow a certain teaching or belong to a certain religion, majority does not mean something is right or wrong. Well, what about this one? What about family? From the least to the greatest. If it worked for mom and dad and it works for me, will mom and dad believe? I'm going to believe. Will mom and dad worship? I'm going to worship. I mean, let's be honest, in one sense, there's no one we trust more like our parents. We give a special sense of respect and deference to their words because of our position with them, because they are mom and dad. But the reality is, remember what Jesus said, that if you wish to be his disciple, it was hate your father and hate your mother, which is not a way of saying that you don't love them or respect them. What it means is that if the words of your parents get a higher scrutiny and a higher respect than the words of God himself, then you're not ready to follow Jesus. Because here's the thing. We know mom and dad could be wrong. They may not be right on everything. Let's ask it this way. If I'm willing to go with mom and dad to wherever they go and to believe whatever it is they believe, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. If today mom and dad said, I'm done walking with Jesus. I don't believe in him anymore. I don't believe in God. I'm going to walk away. Do I walk away? Does that make this all untrue? If this were the last Sunday that my father preached, and my parents believed in God and they left it all behind, would I leave it too? Is my faith in God merely tied to my parents and their faith? Is that my standard of truth? Because it cannot be. It cannot be. And then lastly is tradition. Because this guy had been wowing them, impressing them for a long time. And for some people, that's what they use to determine right and wrong. We've been doing this for a long time. We've had this tradition, we built this habit, we built this routine, we built this system, and we've been doing this, practicing, going through this method for a long time. The problem with traditions is sometimes we confuse our traditions with God's rules, with God's laws. That's what Jesus said in Mark 7, verse 6 and 8. He said, "Then rightly did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites, as it is written, the people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far away from me. But in vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrines the precepts of men. Neglecting the commandments of God, you hold to the traditions of men." In other words, you've taken something that you've built, a tradition, which could be fine in and of itself, but you've elevated it to the commandment of God. Here's the thing. Just because we've been doing something for a long time and we've only ever done it that way doesn't make it right or wrong. Here's something for us today. Just because we're doing something right now doesn't make it right. You thought about that? I don't mean to say we're doing something wrong, but I mean to say that we need to be careful and critical of everything that we do, because just because we've done it before or have always done it that way or are currently doing it now does not mean that that's the standard of what's right or wrong. So what's the standard? Well, you know it. You know it. The one standard, the true standard. The standard where truth is found absolute, no question, is the word of God. John 17:17, your word is truth. Sanctify them in that truth. Or the psalmist who would say that the judgments of the Lord are true. You think of Revelation chapter 21 and verse 5, where it says that he who sits on the throne says, "Behold, I'm making all things new." And he said, "Write, for these words are faithful and true." Question, you read that and you say, well, okay, he says the words that he is writing are faithful and true. What makes them faithful and true? How do you know? I mean, he just says it. Is that good enough? How do we know that the words that this God spoke are faithful and true? Well, look at the author. Look at the author who penned them. Look at the author who spoke them. Revelation 3 and verse 7 says, "To the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, he who is holy, he who is true." Who is true. I was reading this week about this concept of credibility. And the article started with this thing here. It was called 10 Great American Lies. See if you've heard any of these before. Your table will be ready in a minute. One size fits all. This will hurt me more than it hurts you. I'm sorry I'm late. I got stuck in traffic. The check is in the mail. This offer is limited to the first 50 people who will call in. It's not the money, it's the principle of the thing. I just need 5 minutes of your time. That is never true. I'll start my diet tomorrow. And then number one, I'm from the IRS and I'm here to help you. No, that's a lie. Don't believe it. The 10 great American lies. Now here's the point. Here's the point the author was making. He says he calls this all the truth decay, which was a phrase that was coined by this book, in which the book addresses the diminishing role of facts and analysis in American public life. Here's what he says. Another way to say all of this is the diminishing quality of credibility in our culture. Too often, we value image over substance, charisma over character, appearance over virtue. Peter Kuzmic, a Croatian theologian, put it this way. A credible message needs a credible messenger because a charisma without character is catastrophic. Let's hear that again. The credibility of the message depends on the credibility of the messenger. Why do we know these words are true? Because God is true. It's more than just saying, as Paul would say in Titus 1 and verse 2, that he doesn't lie. It's more than saying that. What's saying is that in Ephesians 4 and verse 21, he is truth, the truth. There is no falsehood in Christ, and that's everything that he says and speaks and believes. He is the very definition of truth. What that means then is when we find passages like Psalm 25, what's fascinating is that our word for truth here in Psalm 25, the Hebrew word, it means more than just right or more than just free from error or corruption. The word for true here in Psalm 25 is the same word for faithful, trustworthy, dependable. So look at this. All the paths of the Lord are loving kindness, and if you have the ESV, it says, and faithfulness or truth to all those who keep his covenant and his testimonies. Or same thing here, same word, same Hebrew word, Psalm 31 and verse 5. Into your hand I commit my spirit. You have redeemed me, O Lord, God of truth. Or if you have the ESV, it's faithful God, faithful. And so when we say that God is true, it's not just that he doesn't speak any lies. It's not just that there's not any error in him. He is trustworthy. He is dependable. He is the definition of faithfulness. So here's the point. God is true. Out of God comes truth, nothing but the truth. And so everything he says, everything he writes is truth. Now here's why that's important. You know when Jesus was asked certain questions, like in Matthew 19, those Pharisees came up and said, hey, I've got a question about divorce. You realize the first thing he said was not, all right, I am the Son of God and the authority on all things. Let me give you the answer. The first thing he said is, have you not read? He pointed them back to the standard of God's words because God is truth. Same thing in Matthew 21 when those Sadducees come with that crazy scenario. Matthew 22, that crazy scenario about the resurrection. He answered them and said, you are mistaken, not understanding the scriptures or the power of God. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. But regarding the resurrection of the dead, look, have you not read that which was spoken to you by God? You see what he says? I've already spoken on the matter. The truth has been given. It has been written. The problem is you haven't read it. You don't even understand it. So let's wrap this up. What's our standard on truth? John says, if you don't abide in the teaching, in the words, and the revealed message of truth, you don't have Jesus. What's our standard? The message, the words delivered. And that's why Paul would say, I'm writing to you that you stay within the lines. Stay in your lane. Don't exceed what is written. I've given you truth. Don't go above it. Don't go below it. Stay with it. Stay with the truth. Same thing in Galatians chapter 1. Notice it. Work it through with me. If we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to that which we have preached to you, look at that. Contrary, a different gospel, a different message, a different truth, something that contradicts what we've already given to you, throw it out. Let the person who even dares to teach such a thing be accursed. He says it again. As we've said before, I say again now. If any man to you is preaching you a gospel contrary to that which you have received, cast it out. Why? Because your standard of truth is not going to come from man. It comes from God. It's given in these words. It's found right here. Why? Because the gospel is truth. Twice in Colossians 1, because of the hope laid up for you in heaven, of which you previously heard in the word of truth, the gospel, which has come to you, just as in all the world, as it's constantly bearing fruit and increasing, even as it has been doing in you since the day you've heard of it and understood the grace of God in truth. Twice he says, you've already heard it, you've received it. The truth you have, it's found in the gospel that has been preached. All right. I threw it a lot at you, but I want you to get it. I want you to get the point. Could have done a lot more, but I think you get the point, the overwhelming point. That when God points us to truth, he points us to one standard. Yes, it's himself, but it's the words he gave, the words he had written down. Now, here's a big so what about all this. The reality that since we have truth in God and in his words, the question that ought to be coming around in our minds as we reason and as we think, even just as we live, is what standard am I using? To take the question from Jesus, is it from heaven or is it from men? And so before I believe something and accept it as true, or before I dismiss something as simply wrong, what standard am I using to determine this truth? You know, I think this ought to do, at least initially, that if we would just learn to think and to reason and to rationalize and just to live biblically, I think in one sense what this ought to cause us to do is to slow down. And before I accept something as genuine truth, whatever it is, that sermon, that teaching, that blog, that video, I'm looking at it and I'm weighing it through the lens of God's word. That includes this sermon right here. You cannot take for granted what Ricky and I are saying. We so appreciate that you trust us. It means a lot to us. But we challenge you above all things to make sure everything that we are saying and everything that is ever preached behind this pulpit, no matter who it is true, not because we say it, but because it's found in the book. But I think there's something else here. As if we live biblically, if we live with this kind of a mindset, before I bring an issue to the shepherds here, a matter of right and wrong, what's the standards I'm using? You know, if it's something that I believe is really wrong, can I prove it with the standard? Can I prove it with book, chapter, and verse? It's wrong because here it is outlined in the scripture. Because if I can't find it here, if I can't find it in God's word, may it likely be that the reason I find this wrong is not because it's in the book, but because it crosses my opinions. It's more of a matter of my opinions and my preference than it is a matter of right and wrong in the book. And there's a big distinction between the two. Slow down and learn to think and rationalize and to live biblically within the words God has given to us. All right, I want to end here. God has spoken. What's our response to truth? Holly and I were watching the show. I don't remember. We've been in quarantine for 5 months. It was somewhere along the 5 months that we've been in quarantine. But we watched this show. We watched this show on Disney, the Star Wars show. And in the Star Wars show, it's this crusty character that shows up. And at the end of every sentence, almost every sentence, he ends by saying, I have spoken. And I love that because I don't know about you and you parents, but you know what? I find myself using this all the time. They say, can I buy the toy? And you say no. And they say, well, but I really want it. I've spoken. I've spoken on the matter. I've said my piece. I've counted the 3. The time is done. I have spoken. I love that guy. Here's the thing. God has spoken. Let that air over your minds for a moment. God has spoken. Remember when Jesus was tempted by Satan? Do you remember how he responded every time? Matthew 4. He said, it is written. But that phrase, it is written, you know what it means? What the phrase literally means is it was written and it remains written. It remains written. It is this foundational standard of truth that will exist through time. So here's the thing. Here's God's truth. It has been written. It has been spoken. What are our options to respond to God's truth? Well, I could ignore it. Just absolutely ignore it. I could try and change it up, or I could accept it as truth. You're going to be driving home today. Some of you are going to be taking the bush where you go. And along the way, you're going to see this. In fact, if you didn't see before, you're going to see it now because it's in the sermon. You're going to see this. What are your options when you see this along the road, along the highway? Well, you could ignore it. I'm going to go how fast or slow I want to go, okay? I'm not breaking any laws. I'm just moving along, moving with the flow of speed. I just don't pay attention to that. Or you could change it. Rationalize it in your mind. I know it says 70, but come on, 70 really means like 75, or like here in Dallas, 70 means like 84. I'm just gonna, everyone knows that. I know it says 70, but come on, it's not really 70. Or I could accept it. But to accept it's gonna require me to alter my speed. I'm gonna have to change how fast or slow I'm going to make sure I'm following that speed. Because here's the thing, if I get pulled over and I'm not going that speed, what's a cop going to say if I said, well, sir, I just ignored it. I just ignored the speed limit. He's going to say, yes, you did. But that doesn't change that the law is there. It doesn't matter if you ignored it. The law was there and here's your ticket. What's he going to say if it said, well, sir, come on. You know, I know it says 70, but come on. I mean, it's really 75. It's really 80. You know it. You know it. So no one else was going 70. You know it. We all know it's about 75. He's going to say, can't you read? Because I'm pretty sure that says 70. And I don't care what you think it means or what everyone else thinks it means or no one else was following it. It says 70. You weren't going 70. Here's your ticket. You can take it to the court with the stop sign guy. God has spoken. Clear, simple, powerful, life-changing words. And as we point to when we talk about authority, we point out passages like this one in the book of Revelation 22. We talk about don't add anything to God's word. Don't take away anything from God's word. That's what it says here in Revelation 22 and verse 18. I testify to everyone who hears the words of the prophecy of this book. If anyone adds to them, God shall add to him the plagues which are written in this book. And if anyone takes away from the words of this book, of this prophecy, God shall take away his part from the tree of life and from the holy city which are written in this book. Do you realize how we respond to truth is the same as how we respond to any commandment from any person in life? Because there are some who look at God's words and they choose, I'm just going to ignore it. There are some things I just don't like. It's too burdensome or it conflicts with things that I've been taught or I understand, so I'm just going to act like it's not there. But you realize in ignoring part of God's word, that's nothing more than taking away what God had said. In other words, it's a lot like taking a pair of scissors and cutting out pieces of the Bible that I don't like and I don't agree with. You know what stands though? Even though I might ignore it, I might pretend it's not there. It doesn't change the fact it has been spoken. It has been written. It still exists. But then there are some who say, you know what? No, I'm just going to change it. That is, I'm going to explain it away. I know it says this, but... And they rationalize and they generalize and they explain everything that it doesn't mean and what it does mean. But you know what? When we try and over-explain the message of God and add our commentary and our think so on top of God's words, that's nothing more than adding to God's word. And it looks a lot like this when I saw this picture this week. You can't even read the word of God on top of all the colors and the notes slathered on top of that Bible. And that's what some do today. Their Bibles are full of their commentary and their notes, and what you cannot read and cannot decipher is what God has said. And that's how some approach Scripture. I'm going to explain away the passages that I don't agree with. I'm going to change the thing. I'm going to look for a different way of interpreting these different verses to make it fit with my life and my beliefs, rather than simply accepting the truth, because accepting comes with change. If I accept it as truth, real, genuine truth, every time it's going to require change. Changing my life, changing my thinking to be more and more in line with His. But you do realize, you see it on the board, the reason these attitudes exist are why we have situations, conversations that look a lot like this, where man will say, if you believe, you'll be saved. All you got to do is just believe in God. You don't have to do anything. Just believe in God. God will save you, take you home. But what do you do with Mark 16 and verse 16? That who believes and is baptized shall be saved. Well, you can ignore it, pretend that it doesn't exist. You can explain it away. Well, that's not really what Jesus meant. Or you can accept it, but to accept it means you have to be baptized for the forgiveness of your sins. Well, man says, well, all roads lead home. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter what church you're part of. Doesn't really matter what you believe. just so long as you're a good person and you give your heart to Jesus, all roads lead home. But Jesus said that not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father will enter. What do you do with that passage? Jesus didn't mean it. He was talking about something different. We don't read that portion of the scripture. That's Old Testament. Well, there's some who say, well, grace. Thank goodness for grace. But don't try and tell me about my day-by-day living. Doesn't matter if I lie. Doesn't matter if I fornicate. Doesn't matter the things I watch because God's going to forgive me. Praise God for Jesus and his grace. So don't judge me. I believe that I'm going to be forgiven by the blood of Jesus. So it doesn't really matter what I do. Just there's abundant grace for the sins in which I commit. And all we could say, like Titus 2, the grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation to all men, instructing us to deny ungodliness or worldly desires and to live sensibly, righteously, and godly in the present age. In other words, grace is not a liberty to sin, but rather it is the means to a new life and a different life. You ever see this? You're watching football. He's not taking his helmet off. He's putting his hands over the holes. You see the holes on the side of his ears? Nicholas could describe it to us. He's putting the hands over the holes. That's the quarterback. You know what he's doing? In that moment, he's got his hands in his holes because he's trying to listen to the coach through the headset and his helmet. He needs to listen to the coach so he knows what play to make in order to successfully win this game. And so in a stadium full of 70,000 people shouting and screaming, this man is closely focusing and listening to one voice. This really applies to all of us right now, especially to our young people. Going off to school this fall, this next month, starting college in a couple weeks. You're going to hear a lot of voices, a lot of teachings, a lot of blogs, and a lot of videos. And everyone will say you need to hear their voice. And everyone will say that theirs is right. And everyone will say that you need to believe them. But in the midst of all the noise, there is a voice that speaks truth. There is a voice that if you can block out the others and hear his, just but his words, will help you see through the fog, to catch the real glimpse of the light of truth that exists. Or as Jesus himself said, if you would just hear his words, to know his voice, when he calls, you'll follow. And so you focus on the voice of the shepherd. And what he says and where he leads, we follow. So what Jesus says about marriage, we trust and we obey. What Jesus says about our relationships, how we live morally, holy, godly lives, we trust and we obey. What Jesus says about the church and how we worship and how we work, how we do what we do, we trust and we obey. What Jesus says about sin, we trust and we obey. And what Jesus says about life, finding life, obeying that gospel, putting off sin, putting on Christ, being baptized, we trust and we obey. That's a voice that's calling to you today. If we can help you today, listen to his voice and trust and obey. If we can help you, let's do it right now as we stand and as we sing.